The conference chamber aboard the Nexus Prime fell into an uncomfortable stillness. Representatives from 47 species sat around the vast circular table, their various forms of breathing, clicking, and humming creating what had been a familiar symphony of interstellar diplomacy. But now, even the Zephyrians' melodic whispers had ceased. Captain Sarah Chen remained seated, her weathered hands folded calmly on the polished surface before her. She had asked a simple question, or so she thought. The kind of question that came naturally to a species that had spent millennia looking up at the stars and dreaming of touching them. Why do you never land? The hegemony's finest minds, beings who had mastered faster-than-light travel, dimensional folding, and consciousness transfer, stared at her with expressions ranging from confusion to what she could only interpret as existential dread. High Counselor Vexithera of the Crystalline Dominion was the first to break the silence, her prismatic form shifting through uncomfortable hues. "Human Chen," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that translated as deep unease. "Your question lacks context, does it?" Sarah leaned back in her chair, a gesture that made several representatives flinch. Humans were still new to the galactic community, barely 300 years since first contact, but they had already earned a reputation for asking uncomfortable questions. "You've all been traveling the stars for millennia. Your ships are marvels of engineering that put our best efforts to shame. But in all our exchanges, all our trade agreements and cultural summits, I've noticed something peculiar." She gestured toward the vast viewport that showed the star-scattered void beyond. "You live on ships, all of you. Generation ships, city ships, world ships, floating civilizations that never touch solid ground. Even this station, magnificent as it is, drifts in the void. So I ask again, why do you never land?" The tentacled consortium's representative, Ambassador Creel, shifted his massive bulk with obvious discomfort. His translator struggled with the subsonic frequencies of his distress. "The human asks dangerous questions," he rumbled. "Dangerous?" Sarah's eyebrows rose. "How is curiosity dangerous?" Elder Mothwin of the Stellar Collective, a being composed of what appeared to be living starlight, flickered with agitation. "Because," she whispered, her form dimming, "some questions reveal truths we have chosen to forget." Sarah felt the familiar thrill that came with uncovering a mystery. She had been a xenoarchaeologist before becoming Earth's ambassador, and the scientist in her recognized the signs of a civilization-wide psychological block. "You've forgotten how to land, haven't you?" The silence deepened, becoming almost physical in its weight. Finally, Counselor HFY of the Ancient Navigators spoke. His forearms gesturing in what Sarah had learned indicated profound philosophical discomfort. "Human, your species is young. You see landing as natural because you remember your homeworld. You remember the feeling of wind, of rain, of soil beneath your feet. You remember what it means to be grounded. And you don't? We remember the leaving," HFY said quietly. "All of us, every species in this chamber. We remember the day. We looked up at the stars and said, anywhere but here. We remember building ships not to explore but to escape. And then, Sarah prompted gently. Then we forgot why we were running." The admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Sarah looked around the chamber, seeing these mighty civilizations with new eyes. She saw the telltale signs she had missed before. the slight tremor in movements whenever anyone mentioned planetary surfaces, the way conversations always steered away from discussions of home worlds, the complex psychological conditioning that kept entire species convinced that the void was their natural habitat. "You're all afraid," she said with sudden understanding. "Not of space, of planets, of going back down." High Counselor Vexithara's crystalline form pulsed with painful frequencies. "Fear is an inadequate translation. We have built our cultures, our philosophies, our very identities around the concept of eternal journey. To land would be to end, to become finite again." Sarah stood slowly, ignoring the way the movement made several representatives recoil. Humans were one of the few species that had achieved spaceflight without abandoning their homeworld, one of the fewer still that regularly traveled between planets and ships with equal comfort. "But we land," she said simply. "We go up and we come down. We explore the void and we return to soil. We've built cities among the stars and gardens on 100 worlds, but we never forgot the weight of gravity or the smell of rain." She walked to the viewport, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the deck. "You think landing means ending, but for us, it means beginning again." She turned back to face them, these ancient spacefaring peoples who had forgotten their own origins. "What if I told you that there are 10,000 worlds in human space where you could land? Worlds with atmospheres you could breathe, gravity you could adapt to, soil that could support life you've never imagined possible?" "Impossible," whispered Elder Mothwin. "We have protocols, safety measures. The ship culture must be preserved." "The ship culture has preserved you," Sarah agreed. "But at what cost? When did survival become living? When did the journey become more important than the destination?" She activated her personal communicator, projecting a hologram of Earth. Blue, oceans, green continents, swirling white clouds. "This is where I was born. Not on a ship, not in a station, but on the surface of a world that spins around a star. Every human in this galaxy knows that no matter how far we travel, how long we're gone, we can always go home. We can always land." The hologram shifted, showing human colonies, cities built into cliffsides, floating settlements on gas giant atmospheres, underground complexes in asteroid belts, and yes, vast ships sailing between the stars. "We've learned that home isn't a place, it's a choice. The choice to stop running and start living." The silence had changed quality now, becoming less oppressive and more contemplative. Ambassador Creel's tentacles writhed slowly as he processed this concept. "You would help us remember how to land?" Sarah smiled, the expression somehow both gentle and fierce. "Human, we've been helping people find their way home for as long as we've had ships. It's what we do." And for the first time in 10,000 years, the representatives of 47 species began to seriously consider the possibility of touching solid ground again.